Hey, what kind of car you working on?
It's not for a car. A motorcycle.
It's a what?
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle.
Yeah. It's going to be a different type of film for me.
Hey guys, Viking Samurai here, and today we're going to talk about Nowhere to Run. Now, Nowhere to Run marked an exciting shift in Van Damme's career. At the time, he had just secured a 3-picture deal with Columbia Pictures and was poised for greater things. There's an article from Entertainment Weekly that said Jean-Claude Van Damme could end up being the next Arnold Schwarzenegger or even Steven Seagal. Boy, can you imagine one with a ponytail? They said he could attract a larger audience than just that young male karate-loving follower. Boy, that pretty much describes me to a T. I was that young male karate-loving follower at the time. The article from Entertainment Weekly mentioned that behind studio gates, there were some powerful players that were helping guide Van Damme's career from his awkward adolescence into a more profitable adulthood. He had a whole team behind him, which included the executive of Columbia Pictures, Mr. Gallardi, who said that he could see Van Damme end up doing Tom Cruise-like roles in the future, and also lawyer Jacob Blake, who worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time, and of course his publicist, Mr. Schwartz, who was helping Van Damme undergo some image-enhancing endeavors, such as participation in the Make-A-Wish Foundation, for example. He also made sure Van Damme got to interviews and photo shoots on time. Now, with all these timely obligations that Van Damme had to fulfill, he actually referred to his publicist, Mr. Schwartz, as, quote, master. So it's kind of ironic. This all coincided at the time with a film he was doing called Nowhere to Run. And I'm going to take you guys back to the 90s, and we're going to talk about the time that Van Damme had nowhere to run, so stay tuned. So even though Van Damme had nowhere to run, at least he had a good place to hide. A good part of the movie, he spends a fair amount of time camping. The story behind Nowhere to Run really begins in the early 1980s, when producer of Van Damme's Universal Soldier and Nowhere to Run, Mr. Craig Baumgarten, introduced director Richard Marquand of Return of the Jedi fame to screenwriter Joe Eszterhas of Basic Instinct fame. This meeting eventually resulted in the films Jagged Edge and Hearts of Fire, and then a screenplay titled Pals. When Richard Marquand died in 1987, the screenplay for Pals would be filed away and forgotten about, only to re-emerge years later as Nowhere to Run. Producer Craig Baumgarten says, "Joe and I really didn't think too much about pushing the script forward since a close friend of ours had died so young. Years go by, and out of the blue I was driving along and I knew Jean-Claude Van Damme was searching for a script to do after Universal Soldier, and it just hit me." Jean-Claude Van Damme, who wanted to broaden his range by focusing more on character relationships, agreed to make Nowhere to Run as his next project. The search now began for a director. Baumgarten decided to call Robert Harmon. Producer Baumgarten says, "Since he did The Hitcher, Robert turned everyone down. He's very, very particular about what he gets involved with, and a talented filmmaker who has a definite point of view, style, and energy. Robert is very particular about what he does, and I was thinking I would never get to work with him. I was thrilled when he agreed to do the film." So the script, initially titled Pals, was originally a character-driven drama without action sequences, and it was set to star Mel Gibson. Because the story ended up changing so much, screenwriter Joe Eszterhas ended up disowning the final product. In fact, he said that his biggest failure as a screenwriter was the loss of control of a script that was dear to him. One reason this script was so dear to him that it was written by his friend Richard Marquand, who was also set to direct, but unfortunately ended up dying before the project could ever be made. Eszterhas claims the script was taken and destroyed, that it lost its sensitivity, it lost everything, and he doesn't like to remember that movie. Luckily, the same can't be said for us, as I believe a lot of Van Damme fans are pretty fond of this movie in general. While it may not necessarily be in anyone's top 3, which would likely include such hits as Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Double Impact, Hard Target, etc., these types of things are always highly subjective, by the way, much like this scene from the movie here.
He's got a big penis.
Bree?
He does. He was in the pond washing.
He's got an average penis.
Average for a basketball team.
Nowhere to Run was still a great addition of Van Damme's library of films. We got to see him be a little more vulnerable. In fact, outside of Lionheart, I believe Nowhere to Run showed the most heart. Sam, the character Van Damme played in the movie, was really someone you could care about, not just root for. Speaking of character, Van Damme really flexed his acting muscle in this one. He played a hunter.
What are you doing up this way?
Hunting.
Parking attendant.
The hell are you?
I'm the parking attendant. And you're bothering my customers.
And according to Macaulay Culkin's brother, he even played E.T.
E.T.'s make-believe, honey.
He is not. He was here, Mom.
But it was all good because, according to Van Damme,
We'll have some action, so we'll be in good shape.
as far as the story goes, Nowhere to Run sees our hero Sam, an escaped convict, end up on a farm owned by a widow. When he learns that a ruthless contractor is trying to take over her land, he helps her fight against the injustice. Nowhere to Run still retained the core story concept of the screenplay Pals, about an escaped convict who falls in love with a widow, played by Rosanna Arquette, who stated in many interviews that she disliked working with Jean-Claude Van Damme and only took the role because good parts were few and far between. The two of them did at least have good on-screen chemistry together. Perhaps she didn't like working with Van Damme because he initially turned her down in the film.
Would you like to sleep in my room tonight?
I'll see you tomorrow.
There was nothing subtle about that invitation. It's not like she tried to mask her desires by asking if he wanted to get any coffee late at night.
Coffee's not coffee. Coffee is sex. Coffee's coffee in the morning. It's not coffee at 12 o'clock at night.
Van Damme's character Sam also becomes a father figure to her children, one of them played by Macaulay Culkin's younger brother, Kieran Culkin. In this behind-the-scenes footage, you'll see Van Damme building some good rapport with the young actor as the two of them play karate games together. As far as the script goes, Joe Esterhaus wasn't the only one disappointed in how it turned out though. Van Damme himself was quoted as saying, "The script was not that good. The writer told me he was going to fix everything. I was in his house, he shook my hand, he promised me, but he didn't fix it." I'm sure Van Damme was hoping the writer would take care of the forced one-liners such as,
"I'm the parking attendant, and you're bothering my customers."
Now it's hard to say which writer Van Damme was referring to exactly who he met, because outside of Joe Esterhaus and the late Richard Marquand, Leslie Bohem and Randy Feldman are also credited with Nowhere to Run. The two men do have some other notable crediting credits. For example, Leslie Bohem has written Sylvester Stallone's Daylight, and Randy Feldman wrote Tango and Cash, which starred Stallone and Kurt Russell. As far as Joe Esterhaus goes, he's not your typical screenwriter. In general, once you write a script and sell it, that's usually it. The studio has free reign to bastardize it as much as they want and will bring in other writers to alter it in any way they see fit. Esterhaus is a guy who became a screenwriter that attained equal stardom of that of Hollywood's actors and directors. He stated that screenwriters are supposed to neither be seen nor heard, and that he certainly violated that rule. In doing so, he made the usually hidden figure of the screenwriter into someone who is not only visible, but also bankable. He stated, "I have only one loyalty, to my writing. I never wanted to be the head of a studio or producer. I just wanted to make sure that what I write is what appears on screen, to not have some idiot change it on its way to the screen. Anything that I write, and I think anything that most screenwriters write, should come from your heart and gut and soul. Otherwise, it's not going to be very good. If you care about what you've written, and if it does come from your heart, then I don't think you're going to tolerate people changing it or saying, 'No, you have to do it this way,' without at least getting into a gigantic brawl that takes them to the wall. You may not win that brawl, but the chances are good that you could back people off if you're willing to fight for what you've written. I think a screenplay is your creative baby and you have a responsibility to fight for it, as you would your children. And those who advocate not doing that, I think, are betraying what a writer is all about." The man is certainly passionate. One of the reasons he is in such high demand as a screenwriter was because of 1992's blockbuster film Basic Instinct. He made a record $3 million for the script back in 1990.
Not a bad way to earn a buck.
There ended up being a bidding war between Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna, as each man wanted to make the movie from their respective studios. You've likely seen the Kassar and Vajna credit across a bunch of movies under the Carol Co-Production logo, which was formed by the two men as they did successfully work together quite a bit, producing hits such as Rambo 1, 2, and 3 with Sylvester Stallone, as well as Red Heat and Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Andrew Vajna would sell his stake in Carol Co. in December of 1989 and then formed Synergy Productions. Long story short, the two ex-partners both really wanted Basic Instinct as much as Michael Douglas's character wanted Sharon Stone in that movie. So since Nowhere to Run wasn't initially supposed to have any action, I think it's only fair to actually talk about the action. We didn't get the typical Van Damme balletic display of the signature kicks he's known for. What we did get definitely worked though, at least for this film. He's no karate master, rather he comes across as a tough brawler, so there's more realistic fights here. He's got the skills that would have definitely helped him survive in prison. Outside of the fights, there's a pretty cool chase scene which begins with one of my favorite shots in the film on this motorcycle here. There's an Evel Knievel-esque jump over the police car here, and the exciting climax sees Van Damme race his motorcycle down a mountain. I always find it funny how cops just do not know how to drive in these kind of movies. Now, women drivers are portrayed much more realistic in the film, as can be seen here. But don't take that joke too serious. Like the movie itself, I'm trying to take you guys back to the 90s.
Man, it's the 90s. It's hammer time.
Days when people didn't get offended by every little thing. Check out this clip when Van Damme was promoting the film on Arsenio Hall, for instance.
That one, I was training in ballet and karate. I did lots of bicycle and running. So, of course, my legs were working and in the same time, my butt.
Talked about doing those lock clinches.
No. You
Tell them, they're guys
contraction.
Like in your spare time, if you're just like at a newsstand or something, you can, and kind of, I just want to know, because, black people don't have to do this, and I'm trying to, really, hey, God didn't give us jobs, but he gave us booties,
That's right. By the way, black people, they have good buttocks, so I'm just trying here to help the white people to look good.
I'm not sure if anyone could get away with that anymore. Going back to the action, by the way, there were quite a few notable things taken out of the action playbook from other films, such as Out for Justice, when Steven Seagal flipped and threw a man into a car windshield. And Van Damme gave the same treatment to the guy who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. Who do you think done it better, Steven Seagal or Van Damme, by the way? We also had a villain throw crap in Van Damme's eyes to blind him like Bolo did to him in Bloodsport. And a John Wooism, where we see a character throw another character a gun. Perhaps this was a warm-up for Hard Target, which Van Damme and John Woo went to work on after Nowhere to Run. In Nowhere to Run, Van Damme went from kicking guys while riding his motorcycle to kicking guys off motorcycles in Hard Target. It really went full circle there. The film ended up grossing $22 million domestically and around $42 million internationally for a worldwide gross of $64 million on its $15 million budget, 3.5 of which was Van Damme's, so it ended up being pretty lucrative overall for the man as well as the studio. Speaking of the studio, Columbia said the film is, quote, true to his audience and goes beyond his audience. Our favorite respectful Van Damme film critic Kevin Thomas said, it is a shrewd example of a performer expanding his range while not turning his back on the daring do that made him a star. David Sheehan of NBC TV said it's the, quote, best Van Damme movie ever. And Bob Healy of Satellite News Network said, more Van Damme action than you've ever seen. I'm not even sure if they're talking about Nowhere to Run now. Van Damme had just finished Universal Soldier prior to this, and that had a lot more action than Nowhere to Run. So what do you guys think about Nowhere to Run? Let me know in the comments below.